We're here on the second day of the Inca Conference at the National Motorcycle Museum in Birmingham, where I'm talking to Ronan Kelly of Adtran. Ronan, you gave a keynote this morning, and there was a link to motorcycles and technologies. Take us through that.
There was indeed, Brian. It was very much focused towards the urgency now that's cropping up amongst the altnet community now that all the fundraising has occurred and the targets have been set down. Very much it's eyes down now and focusing on delivering on the homes passed across the UK with the fibre build out, but probably most importantly is getting the subscribers on the network. I think we all know, with 80 operators in the UK today, it's likely that we're going to go into a reasonable consolidation round over the next few years. So it's those that have that critical mass of homes passed and subscribers on the network are most likely going to be the successors once that consolidation occurs.
Yes, and you were talking about, just going back to the motorcycle thing, the speed and the risk, I think, was the thing that you were talking about, wasn't it?
Absolutely, like the speed with which they build out those networks. Like when we talk about speed in the broadband industry, we do very much get focused on the bandwidth that's being delivered, and that is fantastic. We're seeing now with all of this fibre that's being built out, with the technology they're lighting the fibre with, that gigabit services are becoming extremely affordable for consumers out there. But the speed that I was referring to in the keynote is really the speed with which they can get those networks built, and the speed with which they can get subscribers onto the network is going to be critically important.
Yes, because you were saying about the consolidation, there aren't going to be 80 operators in a few years' time, and the successful ones are the ones that actually turn homes passed into customers.
Without question, this is very analogous to the cable industry, 20 years ago, where, there was close to hundreds of different small rural operators, and, that consolidated ultimately down to one operator. So, I don't anticipate that the fibre industry will consolidate down that much, but I do anticipate, when we come out the other side of this build programme 4 or 5 years from now, that we're likely going to have less than 10 operators in the space.
That's very interesting. Also, I was very encouraged by the figures you were showing, the FTTH Council figures, which shows the UK is starting to fight back. We're starting to get up on that graph, aren't we?
Oh, it's fantastic. Brian, you and I have spoken about the figures over the last number of years, and it's been quite slow to get started. But again, if I use the theme from the National Motorcycle Centre here, the operators that have secured all the funding have been really cranking the engine. They've been trying to get it started, putting in place all the processes, hiring all the staff. But they now have that in place, and that's been reflected in the figures. If we look at the year-on-year growth from 2019 to 2020, it was 65% acceleration in year-on-year growth. What we're anticipating now at the end of 2021 is a further 65% acceleration on the previous year's figure, which is outstanding. So it's very clear that a lot of those altnets, amongst those 80 that are out there, have now got those engines running, and they're now delivering for their customers.
And of course, a lot of those engines are running on XGS-PON.
Yes, indeed. The UK is quite unique on that front from the point of view that they were late to market in getting started with their fibre build-out, but that gave them the advantage that they had the opportunity to take the latest in technology, because it was coming down the cost curve at that point already, and deploy that rather than, GPON has been a fantastic technology. It's served our industry well for it's coming up on 19 years now, would you believe? But they were able to leapfrog GPON and get started straight away with XGS-PON. And what we're seeing now is roughly around 90% of the altnet community in the UK today is deploying XGS-PON, and that's having a knock-on impact then with regard to the sorts of services that they're delivering. So we see increasing numbers of them now have gigabit at very affordable rates. We're also seeing the emergence now of the early multi-gigabit market here in the UK as well.
Yeah, and you were talking about the next big thing, and one of the things I took from that was the gaming, the amount of capacity needed for gaming that's all driving this forward.
Indeed. As I spoke about within my own household, month on month for the last 12 months, what we've seen is the Game Pass subscription is contributing 1 terabyte of download on top of the other 700 gigabytes of download that we do within our house every month. And a lot of that is being born out of the increasing fidelity within the games. The games are all now ultra high definition. But one of the things that we have to remember is the life cycle of the latest ultra high definition game consoles, so the Xbox Series X, the PlayStation 5, they typically have a 7-year life cycle before the next one comes out. We're only 1 year into that now at this point in time. So where the leading games, the largest games at the moment, are now coming in at like 230 gigabytes in size, I anticipate by the time we get to the end of the life cycle of those games consoles, we're going to be much closer to half a terabyte in size per game.
Well, as usual, it's exciting times in these industries, isn't it?
No question.
Thank you very much for talking to us.
My pleasure, Brian.